we all have an unconscious psychological, if you will, return on investment. Now, most of you know what ROI is, and I'm going to go into it in detail in this content, but the truth is that most of you, this is an unconscious program, and it's running for both yourself, and it runs in your leadership model, in your business model. And so when I talk about leadership, that's parent to child or boss to subordinate. You know, sometimes it's even self. You're going to discover as we talk about what is this tool and how to use it to your advantage to create more buy-in on what you're trying to do, both for yourself and others, that it's a great way to think about where the challenges are and perhaps how to solve them. Because the truth is, all of you, to some level or another, are businessmen and women and have been in business at one time. And so you know the concept that in order to invest in something, that here's a training program, or, you know, are we going to upgrade our product line? Are we going to buy software for the business? We have to make this choice. What's the return on our investment? And so let's talk about what that means, and let's put it into a psychological model. The first question you have to ask yourself, what's the asset, or what's the asset base that you're investing in? And so literally, if this is a self-assessed ROI, should I do this or should I not? You're looking at yourself. You're looking at your pluses and your minuses. You're looking at your capabilities, particularly in the arena of the decision. You are looking at all the supporting systems that support you. That could be money. It could be, a spouse. It could be your team, team that you have at work. What is the asset that the decision is going to be made on? Secondly, now to ponder, what's the investment? What's the actual investment? And it's not always just dollars. A lot of times, some of the most difficult investment costs that you could have is time. You know, the two biggest reasons why people tell me they struggle with the audio coaching system, either buying it or once they bought it and used it, or any which way you want to look at it, people will tell me that it costs too much, or it has a dollar value assigned to it. And then they'll tell me that they don't have time, to invest. And I've always worked with you guys to understand the counterintuitive truth. You know, it is never about time, ever. Because when, excuse me, when you choose to focus on your greatness, or you choose to move your life upwards by investing time into, in our model, a newer you or a newer psychology, versus in reality what you're saying when you're looking at this investment, you're saying, well, I'm invested in old me. And old me carries things that are important to me, like safety. Or my old psychology, you know, helps me avoid disappointment. If I were to go off and be this giant person, this, you know, great new me, well, there's a lot of problems with that. And thus the investment tied to newer psychology, or in the case of if you're using this in a business environment and you're looking at the team or your colleague, or, you know, you're even looking at having this discussion with a teenager and trying to say X, Y, Z to them, you have to understand what is their investment. What is the investment? So we've talked about time and money, but there's other important investments that take place. You know, sometimes you have to invest courage in doing something. You know, sometimes you have to invest in a psychological model that says that you don't worry about what other people think of you. You know, sometimes You're even looking at opportunity cost, meaning if I were to do this new you investment that you're asking me to make, well, there's another opportunity that I'm missing. I could be over XYZ doing that, or I could be here working on this. And so to understand at a very deep level, when you are trying to do something, to change something, to transform something, to lead somebody, to know, first of all, the asset, and second of all, what's the investment that I'm making. And then I've kind of got it chewed up here a little bit, but let me try and get a little bit more room here and spread it out. The next thing that's really, really important, if you can see me circle in there, and I'll pull it down here, is what's my return? That's the big piece of this equation. What's the return? I've got the asset. I know what that is. That's me. That's a child. That's my business. That's myself. I know what that investment is. I know what that asset is. The next, what am I going to invest in it? And we talked, is it time? Is it money? Is it, what exactly is it? And now, what's the return? What's my return? Am I going to, when I'm new me or new you psychology, have I lost a friend as a result of it? Have I, pissed off a spouse? Have I caused a gulf with my boss? Those kinds of returns generally cause you to say, yeah, no, I'm not doing this transformation now. It's too hard. So when you look at what's the return, you have to ask yourself, am I gaining a friend or more friends? Am I discovering more love with my spouse? Is something better, bigger, more exciting happening for me because I'm doing this? The distance that I've created between my Q-mates, am I getting closer to someone else that's more important to me perhaps in a future psychology? I'm pushing my boss at work. I'm pushing my team at work. Is there going to be a return on this investment? Now, I've given you a lot of the psychology pieces of this, and I want to reiterate them again. When you think about, is it going to, the return when I'm looking at friends, is it plus or minus? When I'm looking at, how people think of me, do they like me or are they mad at me? Did I offend somebody? How do people think of me? Is there a plus or a minus gain? When I think about the risk or the danger, how hard is it to do this? Am I incurring more risk and danger than I'm getting reward? And when you look at this equation, that's why I tell you, everybody runs an ROI. And the challenge is, for most of you, it's all subconscious. You don't really sit down and think about, what is the asset that I'm investing in? And so if I'm asking you to go to New You Psychology, or I'm asking you to go to this greatest version of who you are, which, we've worked a lot around in January and February, is I have a dream. That I have a dream means that Martin Luther King, we're walking in his steps for greatness. That if I understand the asset and I understand the investment and I understand the return, now you're going to arrive at a very interesting truth. And this was the work that I was doing on myself and I was doing on my business model. Do you think that when people say, when I think of the audio coaching system, yeah, no thanks. Or, I'm thinking about buying a book from you, no thanks. Or, I've actually bought the ACS, but now I'm going to dig in. I'm going to do my model of the world, and I'm really going to do questions out of that big 225-page fat book. And I'm going to Do you think they do it because they don't believe in me or the inevitable you system? Generally not. People that look at the system, they go, this is great. I understand it. It's telling me new things, new ways to look at things. I love the inevitable you. So now we have to begin and think, well, what's the problem? Is it the asset that's a problem? Is it, who you are? Do you believe that if you put this investment into you, do you believe that in fact you're going to get the return? Or in fact, are you one of those people that always snatch defeat, out of the jaws of victory? Is that your MO? You'll do, above average. You'll do, good. You'll work hard, but, to make this leap to greatness, I've really got a problem with the asset. I really am not sure that the asset's up to it. Or I'm not sure that the investment, that's a challenge. Or when you run the two of them together and you leverage the return on the asset and the investment, at the end of the day, doing all this work, putting myself in harm's way, putting my friends at risk, putting what people think of me at risk. I'm not sure. I don't know if doing this, thinking this thought, making this commitment to be this person, commit to do these new actions and to live my life a new way, based on the things that I worry about, based on my friends, based on my job, based on how I'm loved and get loved, based on what I believe the planet is, based on my job, based on my company, based on all of these areas that come into equational play with you. If you're struggling with doing something, the likelihood that you have made an investment and have an ability to do that is very, very small. And hey, Scott and Lynn, thank you for coming. I see you guys there. And that's the question you have to ask yourself. That's what you got to struggle with. When you are looking at changing your life, doing something different, and in this arena of greatness, it feels out there. It feels really, really challenging. You'll always be able to do a 10% incremental adjustment. You'll work a little harder. You'll stay a little longer. You'll put a little more effort in. You'll be a little bit more intense. And as the planet ebbs and flows, if the plan is getting harder, then you get harder. The planet's getting easier, well, then you can slack off a little bit and recover from the last hard period. But this world of transformational psychology, saying that I really want to be different, I really want to do something different, I really want to create something different in my life, I want to be this person, I want to have these things, I want to gift this to people that I care about, you're going to discover that the reality is you are, in all likelihood, you are running an ROI equation. You're just doing it very unconsciously. And to pull this out of consciousness and put this up in forefront, then you really have to take a look at the things that we've talked about. What's the asset? What's really the investment? And then ultimately, what's my return? And when you begin to articulate these three elements differently, I'm going to tell you that some of the decisions that you're making today about courage, about bravery, about what to do, about what not to do, is going to have a very, very different flavor for you.